Welcome to Wolverhampton Literature Festival, and we're really excited to deliver this really fun university showcase of all the different talent that we have at university. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to pass over to Lisa, and she's going to introduce you to all of the performers.
Okay, thank you, Georgina, and hello and welcome to what we're calling Words, Lit and Verse. It's a showcase of creative work from students who are studying creative and professional writing at Wolverhampton, or who are our recent graduates of that programme from Wolverhampton University. And there's also some creative snippets from us lecturers too. We don't get away with it that easily. Some of us have directly responded to the festival's request of the theme of love, because obviously it's over Valentine's Day, and I think love during lockdown has been a very important factor. Some of us have interpreted it in our own way completely, and as some of us have ignored it completely. But what we're all doing here is coming together just to showcase what we get up to here at the university, and we are going to begin with our newest recruit, actually our newest lecturer, Charlie Barnes.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and everyone else. It's really lovely to have like first proper performance as one of the lecturers, so it's really, really nice to take part. I have a mixture of love, to put a euphemism to it, so I'm gonna kind of dip in and out of different styles to try and have a little variety with things. One of my current trends in my writing is to bang a footnote on everything, because it allows my academic brain and my poet brain to work comfortably alongside each other. So the first piece that I'm going to read, the footnote for it is Irish folklore states that garlic is known as bear's garlic due to brown bears allegedly eating garlic bulbs to regain their strength after hibernation. And this piece is called Bear's Garlic, A Long Winter. She and I spent a long winter waiting for the earth to be green. I met her in damp lands where grazing on the ground brings up soil still wet, because the frost visits in passing of a morning, and the forest floor welcomes this blanket. The native bulbs don't mind, and neither did we, as we lay in tendrils stretched beneath us and between us. The sweetness of garlic shading the scent of ourselves. We each bit into a bulb to regain strength lost on our rutting. With every mouthful, we imagined we were bears. Thank you. See everyone, one down, big breath. My next piece is a little bit sad, but it's also one of my sea poems, so I had to get it in, although it doesn't have a footnote, so it's not completely on Charlie Barnes' brand. So this is called Pouring Secrets. I've spilled my secrets into the ocean. Let the waves catch and carry them away. A message in a bottle for someone else to hear, in the form of howling riptides and gentle splashes. The sea can throw my confidences at curved walls, gift them to strangers, shout in winter storms. She still loves him. Thank you. So moving on to another footnote. So you swing back into something more comfortable. So my accompanying footnote for this poem then is about something called the dragon tree, and the footnote is the dragon tree was used in old magic as a love incense by maidens and by abandoned wives, because it was thought that burning the blood of the plant was believed to bring lovers home. And it's a really, really interesting plant that, like, effectively, if you kind of like tap the bark of it, it actually looks like the tree is bleeding. So you're kind of like leaving out this like mucusy stuff that looks like it's really been harvested from the tree. And I'm sure it worked. So this is called Drakino Draco, Dragon Slayer. I have slain a dragon for him. cut it limb from limb and left the blood to harden in the outside air. It reddens, becomes a thick gum that I can collect and stash in 7 separate jars. For the midnights of a full week, I will burn the resin as an incense. I will bring my lover home. Thank you. And then my final piece that I'm going to read out is sort of about love. It's kind of about lockdown love in lots of ways. I write loads about sunflowers. I've banged a sunflower on the cover of every book that I possibly can. They have really, really interesting folklore attached to them as well. And I use that a lot in my writing, and the accompanying footnote for this particular poem is sunflower law states that burying sunflower seeds an equal distance from each other around your home will protect the occupants of the house. And during a year when we haven't been able to go particularly far from our homes and have desperately wanted to protect the occupants of our house, never has sunflower folklore felt more relevant than that little tidbit. So this is called Helianthus, social distancing. 1. The trowel only hinders. I pinch seeds between thumb and forefinger and bury them 2 meters apart around the outskirts of home. Law tells me this will keep the occupants safe, and I've run out of other measures. Sans soap, sans face masks, sans. We've been asked to stay inside for 3 weeks, another 3 weeks, another. I will bring sunshine now, however I can. 2. The security of something larger than ourselves has been a comfort. Their stalks have stretched and grown into a children's story. This is a castle now, fortressed by flowers that reach for each other but never quite touch, as we never quite touch. But their leaves meet in shadows, feigning contact, overlapped on the earth. They too practice holding each other from a safe distance. Thank you very much.
Charlie, that was lovely. Thank you so much. I know the clapping. And so from lecturer to recent graduate, James Adamson.
Hello. I'd like to read you a story called Mr. Smith today. Mr. Smith's son knew his first name. He'd have been happy to tell it to you as well, but he put too much fun up his nose and died a few years ago. His wife probably knew it too, and she'd throw in a few expletives for free, but she was also dead. Mr. Smith probably knew his first name, but unfortunately he'd found lockdown a bit overwhelming and had played trapeze in his stairwell with his belt on the 1st of April in the year of our Lord 2020. There was a clever rat in the walls of Mr. Smith's house. He knew that Mr. Smith was the kind of man to approach you in a coffee shop for unsolicited conversation about trains, dressed in a decade-old company polo that smelled of piss. Not that it matters, because Mr. Smith smelled of piss as well. The clever rat knew Mr. Smith was the kind of man that went to the bus station nearest to Clotherston, not to go anywhere, but to talk to the people coming back from their trips. The clever rat knew that everyone in the pub who knew Mr. Smith, but none of them knew him. The barman knew he'd stretch out a single pint as he went about the place, and the regulars knew to invent a friend who was running late to take the last chair at the table. The clever rat knew that there was absolutely no fucking chance that in the middle of a crisis of pub closures and at-home fitness lessons, that anyone at all was coming to check on Mr. Smith. His little bills would be paid from his account, his pension would come in, and he would keep hanging there, perfectly still. Well, still since the spasm stopped anyway. Now, in possession of a house that he wouldn't be trapped, poisoned, or stomped in, the clever rat decided to base himself there. It was an odd thing for a rat to be so solitary, but he knew that when the belt or Mr. Smith's neck gave way, he didn't really care which, the rat could deliver a feast to his mischief. The clever rat waited And the clever rat really had expected the wait to be over by April 12th, but as Dominic Cummings' car rolled by and the belt and the neck were still holding. Still, the rat was patient. He'd read the papers that were thrown out of the houses nearby. This wasn't going to be over any time soon. The clever rat had expected the summer heat to cause some interesting bloating, perhaps enough to bring him down. Unfortunately, the body had just turned an odd ashy purple colour and was stubbornly clinging to the belt. It had started to drip, though. The clever rat had panicked when the lockdown seemed to come to an end, for about 10 minutes anyway. Still, reading the papers, it wasn't long until another lockdown was inevitable. Besides, things would have to go back to a nauseatingly mundane sort of normal for anyone to miss the presence of Mr. Smith. By late September, it became apparent to the clever rat that by the time the body did come down, there'd be nothing edible left. A fine waste of time. At least he and his mischief could use the place to nest for a few months, or years. Still, the clever rat laughed. Even with the seemingly everlasting belt and surprisingly strong spine of Mr. Smith, the jury was still out on whether the body or the lockdown would fall first.
That's wonderful, James. Thank you very much. What a great interpretation of how we're all feeling, I think, during lockdown. Okay, so from a recent graduate to one of our recent first years, Callum Furnival.
Hello. I portrayed love in my short story today as something that's been a very special part of my identity for a very long time in my life. I identify as American, and this story called America the Captivating is going to be about my love for the United States of America. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light? My eyes open after a long slumber. The sunlight greets them, and I get out of bed. I prepare for the day ahead. I look over the forested land of Nampa, Idaho, whilst I brush my teeth. What beauties you show me, America. Today's the day. My boyfriend and I are going to take a road trip across the United States. Later, as I drive in my car, I pass by the emerald glades of Idaho's fir tree forests. Oh, America the stunning! You're but an isolated beauty of North America. What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming. Oh, look, a shooting star, make a wish. My boyfriend was giddy as he closed his eyes and cusped his hands. The arid desert of New Mexico was a stark contrast compared to the sky. The orange of the sun on the horizon melted into a deep and cool dark blue. The ethereal atlas of the sky was shining above us, as the radiance of the stars unmasked the desert's unknown beauty. Oh, America the mysterious, what bounty of secrets do you hide? Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight? This hill is huge. When will we get to the top? The climb up the steep yet remarkable Black Hills of South Dakota provided an actual challenge. It was like escaping the ashen stress of war and seeing a wonderful new frontier beyond. The Great Plains were a wild new experience. The horses galloped ever so elegantly across the grassy fields. Their manes were shiny, almost as if it were made from silk. The light breeze blew through our hair from a new direction, which led to new adventures. Oh, America the delightful, what joys may you bring us? O'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming. The famous Windy City, Chicago, Illinois. The sidewalks paved their way around the gorgeous Lake Michigan. The food tasted wonderful, especially Chicago's specialty. It was pizza with deep pan. The pizza had a lot of toppings on it, including pepperoni, ham, and pineapple. The fishermen waved from their boats on Lake Michigan, and as the silent water produced small waves, which gently rocked the fisherman's boat. Oh, America the quiet, you need not speak because your sights speak wonders. And the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air. As we opened the car windows, we felt a burst of heat hit our faces. The sun, the beach, the paradise. I can't wait to go for a swim. The palm trees relaxed as some of them swayed to one side. The sunshine state of Florida was truly a tropical paradise. The golden rays of the sun bathed us in its glory. As we swam in the ocean, we felt at bliss as the water cooled us down in the heat. Oh, America the rueful, your heat is very clement. You need not feel sadness, for you are a spectacular vision come true. Gave proof, through the night, that our flag was still there. The historic streets of the District of Columbia made me feel proud. The White House, the center of our great and wonderful nation. What a magnificent sight to behold! The history of our nation is chronicled through the Lincoln Memorial and the Smithsonian Institution. Oh, America the respected, you have been through so much, and yet you remain as resilient as the wind. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Ah, the huge metropolitan city of New York. The yellow cabs were like flashes of lightning, zooming across the roads to get to the next destination. The Statue of Liberty raises her flames of hope and courage upon the Atlantic and on the horizon. Give me your tired, give me your poor, your huddled masses yearning to be free. The wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless, tempest-tossed to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. Oh, America, the generous, may you bring the victims of war solitude on our shores. O'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. And that's it.
I love that at the end. And that's it. Do you know what? I mean, oh, for the days when we can travel again, eh? And so from the shores of America, over to, via Madrid to Lancaster, Ines, another one of our creative and professional writing lectures, Ines Gregoria Labata.
Lovely, thank you for that, Lisa. That was the best introduction ever.
Tenuous, I feel.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm gonna have to read from my phone because I don't have a printer at home. So if you just bear with me a second. And in classic lockdown fashion, I'm coming to you from my kitchen because my partner also works from home and we have to share the studio room. So, you know, lockdown. Okay, so the theme was love, and I was trying to find something that I could read that was short, because I normally write novels or novellas, and you don't really wanna hear any of my poems. So I came up this really short kind of flash fiction piece that I wrote a few years ago, but kind of like fit the theme of love. So I was thinking, well, let's go with this today. Okay, so it's titled, Let's Donate Our Bodies to Science. We love each other, but a lifetime is not enough. Desire brings a perfect second of unity, of silenced harmony, with all the planets lined up, the universe turned into a mosaic. But why should we accept this collection of moments when time itself has no beginning, no end? Yes, I'm talking about time, who, according to the holy theory of relativity, has no problem merging with space. Why not imitate these two ethereal lovers? Right now, our beating bodies are like convents made of bones and flesh. Sacred, yes, useful to engage in the joys and sorrows of existence. But as a cloistered nun doesn't know anything about the so-called treasures of the exterior world, we remain ignorant of the wonders beyond our own physicality. Imagine now our carcasses being cleaned, macerated, boiled, bones bleached and scrubbed until they glitter, finally free from muscle, fat, and skin. Can you envision anything more genuine, more primal than the smile of a skull? In the hands of medical students, these bones, our bones, will mix by an exquisite mistake. Your pubis, my tibia, your ulna, my mandible, your sacrum, my scapula, your femur, my fibula, all combined in one anatomical set, part of an impossible skeleton. At last, we are one. Thank you.
That was lovely. And the lovely bones.
Yeah,
absolutely. Look, gosh, who'd have thought that bones could sound so beautiful?
My sister is a medical student, so got a bit of inspiration there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ines. And now on to one of our second year students, Hope Cool.
Hi. My story is still around the theme of love, but it's probably not what you traditionally think of as a love story. Well, it's definitely not a traditional love story. It's called Closure. I sit at my table, whiskey glass in hand. The half-full bottle at my elbow was full an hour ago. I stare into an urn filled with her ashes and drain the last of the whiskey from my glass. Today's the day she asked me to scatter them, the day we first met, the day we first kissed. She asked me to scatter them at midnight, the time I first told her I loved her, at the Rose Garden, the place I asked her to marry me. She always kept them as important dates. I laugh. I think this is the most selfish request you've ever made of me. A knock at my door causes me to jump. Artemis, stop leaving your door open, Rebecca says. She tuts as she sees me. I swear, she wouldn't want you to live like this. Don't say her name, I mumble. It still hurts to think of her name. I don't think I could bear the pain of hearing it. Rebecca takes the empty glass out of my hand and picks up the bottle. I don't see what she does with them. It's been 2 years, Artemis. She picks up the urn. I let her take it. For the first year, I wouldn't let anyone else touch it. Rebecca hugs me, and I hug her back. Rebecca was her best friend. Over time, Rebecca became mine too. Rebecca stares at me, shocked. I smile at her. Thank you for everything. You haven't called me Becca since... She clears her throat. Come on, you should clean yourself up. When was the last time you had a shower? I stand in front of my bathroom mirror. My red hair's still damp from the shower, and when I run my fingers through it, it retains the spikes. I run my hand over my stubble. She never liked me clean shaven, so I leave it. I wear the suit I was going to wear on our wedding day. Her dress is still hanging in a canvas bag in my wardrobe. Bad luck to see the dress before the wedding, she would tell me. I close the wardrobe door. I meet Rebecca at the front door. She's wearing a green dress, what I assume to be her bridesmaid dress, and her brown hair is pinned up with a rose pin. She takes my hand and leads me out of the door. It's 11 by the time we get to Rose Garden. Rebecca hands me her urn. Where exactly did you ask her to marry you? Rebecca asks. In front of the fountains, I reply. We walked the same path I took with her that day. I squeeze my eyes shut to keep from crying. We wait in front of the fountains until midnight when I kiss the urn. Rebecca hugs it, and we let her ashes scatter on the wind. No matter where you are, no matter where you go, I always want to be with you, in your heart, in your soul, in your thoughts. I still remember my speech from when I proposed to her. My voice breaks and Rebecca squeezes my hand. You always loved to travel, but now your wings have reached somewhere I can't follow, but I wish for you to be safe. I wipe the tears from my cheeks, and a butterfly lands on my hand. I laugh through my tears. I love you, Liliana.
Well, I think that's an absolute definition of love, quite frankly. Hope. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much. And then back to another recent graduate, Fiona. Fiona Dyke. So lovely to see you again.
Lovely to see you.
Yes, and over to you. The stage is yours.
Well, I think now we're looking at, with these two pieces of flash fiction, we'll be looking at love on its way out, unfortunately, I think we'll find. So this first one is called For Just One Moment. He looks at me like he thinks I'm lying. And so I say, I do not care if you believe me or not. I think I mean it, but I'm not sure. I light my cigarette and look away from him. He tells me he is older. Like I do not know this. Like I should forgive him for it. Like it is the only reason. Like it is enough. But it is not. He talks of all he has given me, all he has done, but I did not ask him for any of it, though I took it anyway, because it was there, because I wanted to, because I think he needed me to. He talks quickly, like he's running out of time, and as he talks, his neck gets redder, his voice rises and breaks, and I think, will he cry? So I look away again. He says I do not see who he is anymore. I know he's right. I feel like I should say that he will be okay, but I think perhaps he won't be, so I don't. I don't say anything. I could only say I am sorry, but it is not enough. I curl my bare legs up underneath me on the sofa, and I see just how pale my skin has become, how it needs the sun. For just one moment, just then, he looks at me in the way he used to, when it began. But it is not enough. I look out of the wet window beyond the rain, and it's like I smell the light and the colour and the newness. Everything is green, I say. He looks, but he does not see. There is nothing I can do any different. There is nothing he can do. And there you go. The end of the affair, so to speak.
Goodness, I was so mesmerised then. I thought there was going to be more to that. You know, it's just leaves hanging there, Fiona.
And this is, so that was actually a piece I wrote during my time at the university, but this is another little piece, and this is called Dictionary Definition. You looked it up once, that word, the one others spoke in a half whisper, almost a hiss. You knew what it meant. How could you not? But you were curious. How were you most commonly defined? The dictionary was worn now. Its spine, once firm, had softened, weakened. You had to guess where the letter M would start. You remembered the dictionary your parents had, half moons neatly pecked from its outer edge, each marked with a letter of the alphabet. An easy-to-follow guide to start your search. You had wanted a dictionary like that. The book splayed open, pages fully exposed. You turned half a dozen before you found the word you were looking for. You'd skimmed over misconduct and mislead, but came to a halt at misdegree. That was new to you. A card game, it said, or that referring to a blank used as a wild card in this particular form of draw poker. You let go your breath and restarted your search. Then there it was, sitting between mistreat and mistrial. That felt right. Something other than just alphabetically accurate. Mistress. There were 6 definitions there, only some applied to you. Female head of a household, the female owner of a pet, a woman, open brackets, other than his wife, close brackets, with whom a married man has a, open brackets, usually prolonged, close brackets, sexual relationship. The first 3 definitions your dictionary gave. The gold, silver, and bronze. Was this winning? Disappointed at what was offered, you considered writing to the editors. There is something lacking in what you have here, you would tell them. Something dishonest in such a plain truth. You would offer mistress, term unspoken by the lover, open brackets, married, close brackets. Preferred alternatives include a surprise drink with the lads from work, a meeting that overran, or, when under particular pressure, an unexpected traffic jam. You'd called him lover then. Would that suit you better? You flicked through the pages of the dictionary again. They fluttered beneath your touch. Lover, a person with whom another is having sexual relations, and in the plural, a couple in love or having sexual relations. Interesting, that or. Still dissatisfied, you returned to your original search, reread that third definition. Usually prolonged, it said. Were you and he prolonged? Temptation got the better of you, and you worked your way through the pages again. Prolonged, lengthy, open bracket, especially, close bracket, tediously so. You decided it was time to close the dictionary then.
Oh, Fiona, that was wonderful. Do you know what? I don't think we use enough open brackets, close brackets. Honestly, I think that is just wonderful, wonderfully inspiring. Thank you very, very much. So from prose to poetry, to another one of our creative and professional writing lecturers, Rob Francis.
Thank you very much. Lovely to be here. I'm going to share a few love poems from my latest collection, Subsidence. This first one is a love poem from grandson to grandfather, and it's called He Grew the Best Runners in Bilbrook. He grew the best runners in Bilbrook, always had a grin and an I-do cock, always had handshake for stranger and kin, and he'd drive us mad with his canting. He never leave anyone lonely. He grew the best runners in Bilbrook. Stan's patch marked his plot, and he marked plots with poppies for his muckers who fell in Malaya, and he'd tell tall tales of guarding the palace and blarting with the Duke about cheeky ales down the bag of nails. And sometimes with a bowl good of scotch, you'd hear him singing Johnny Cash laments in slurred baritones. When Nan and Mom went up the bridge, he tipped me 2 fingers of whiskey and said, "You know how, Rob, me and your Nan, we always say good morning every morning." That's right, that is. He grew the best runners in Bilbrook, and he had a jab to gooey left hook, and he beat back death in the jungle, and he beat back death in a truck crash, and I wish I could lay my knuckle on that cruel, twisted curse that steals minds before their time, but I keep it locked in, and I'll lock in on how even at the end he'd force his tired mouth to grin at the sight and sound of his great-grandkids. Thank you very much. And I'm going to, as it's love themed, no form is greater than the sonnet for this. And I'm dedicating, this is a love song of friendship to all of my muckers down in Netherton, especially the O'Reilly crew. This is called Aisha's Sonnet. It's a sodomy on Pope or Dun. The rains on our plains and the sem-soiled bones of speech's skeleton. There ain't voice or sign without freedom. Our Aisha, half-caste, single mom at teen, has more fill in her ken than them teachers who tusk their tongues. I got a first-class ons with 87, even though has been seen checking her knickers at sad men down the crown. Or I never been resting in nettles, or grasp stems. Your tongue ain't worth a damn when you say we ain't nothing but bibbles in a can. Thank you very much. And I shall leave you with a proper love poem, which is about marriage. And this is called The Wedlack. Up on Briley Bonk, where they'd pledged sand and flame to glass, 2 others made a troth. 1 wench, 1 mon, and 4 words, I love you, Bab. That's the burnt ring a wedlack's made. See, down in Agley or Kiddie or Penn, they'd think the Delph were nothing but the cut. Strange folk in strange pubs, the filth the 9 locks scrappy. But this wench and this mon know how Briley Bonk etches shell-thin crystal from his muck. That's why it don't matter how our Kyle took to his knee on the car park concrete, with his infectious grin solemnly asks, will you marry me, man? And a day hesitate, and a smiled back with broad wild gob. Yes, I says. Up on Briley Bonk, where they'd pledged sand and flame to glass, 2 others made a troth. 1 wench, 1 mon, and 4 words. I love you, Bab. That's the burnt ring a wedlock's made. Then the fire and sand tutored to cut glass, raw, corporal, lush, like their love. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Rob. There was something dead romantic about that, wasn't there, Mand? Oh, that was lovely. Are we sticking with poetry, Teresa? Oh, yes.
We are.
We are.
Yes.
We are. There
Yes.
was there was a little gap in time then. Okay, so to introduce you now to another one of our level 5 year 2 students, Teresa Russell, who's also going to give us a little bit of poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so firstly, can I just say I missed the memo that said that the theme was about love. Okay. However, I think we can read a little bit of love into some of these if we listen carefully. Okay, so I'm going to start with the urban fox. Our daddy brought a rabbit home, a baby in a box. He made a hutch to save him from our local urban fox. We loved our bunny wild and grey. We fed him weeds and that which grew around the garden edge, and bunny sure grew fat. All summer long we kept him safe, our bunny, in his hutch, and every day we tended him. He didn't ask for much. But then one day when we came out, Bunny's hutch was open. I couldn't understand it because the catch, it wasn't broken. We searched and searched to no avail. I guessed that fox had won. I cried and swore I'd shoot that fox. I wished I had a gun. Now just you stop your wailing, lass, my daddy said to me, because crying sure won't help him now. You've had him for your tea. Sadly. And if that isn't enough to turn you into a vegetarian, I don't know what is. Okay. Now I'm going to move on to another little story, and this is a true story in poetry form, but the people involved shall remain anonymous. It's called Do You Want to See a Spider? Do you want to see a spider in Obday's yard out back? The biggest you have ever seen, airy, scary and black. I admit I'm scared of spiders, but I'd not live it down, so keep me secret to myself and off we go uptown. Mr. Obday runs our beer off, where Grandma buys her start, and where we take our bottles back for pennies to share out. He clambers over Obday's wall, past empties on tiptoe. The yard's so full of this and that where scratchy brambles grow. I clamber over after him, trying to be quiet, but catch me foot and trip and crash and stomping up a riot. We hide real quick 'fore Obday comes, behind crates of cider, and when it was safe, we come back out, looking for that spider. We find some draggled, cobbled webs, but spider's gone to ground. I have to say, I would have screamed if spider had been found. Just then, his devil eyes shine up. I know it's somewhat bad, and Swan Vesta from his pocket burst. He'd nicked 'em off our dad. Do them spider webs catch fire? He whispered in me tab. Then takes a peek behind and says, sis, you best not blab. One match he struck on cider box. Blue, yellow, orange light that sparked a frenzied rush of heat. Fast dancing flames took flight. We stood stock still and watched with awe, not sure what next to do. And then he screeched, get out of here, man's gonna kill us too. We leapt back over Obday's wall like frogs escaping pot. Back home we raced to fetch supplies the spider quick forgot. We must have looked like proper tits. At Obday's folk did stare, bringing 2 cups of water back when Fire Brigade were there. Thank you.
You know
Now,
what? Oh, sorry.
Go on, carry on.
I was just about to say, for somebody who says, I haven't written about love at all, I think what you're actually writing is showing all your love for poetry and actually writing poetry for children, which is what you've been doing over the past, you know, in the last module of children's literature. And it's really kind of woken something in you, hasn't it?
I just love it. I love it. Okay. I have got a couple more. Have I got time? I hope so. Okay. The next one is really about love and the pandemic and everything else. And I think we've all got a little bit of something to share about that. So I will just read this one to you, called Tea. I'd ring me mum and ask her to mash a pot of tea. It was something I'd took for granted till COVID took it from me. She'd put kettle on and make us a brew, share gossip and advice for free. We'd talk and dunk our digestives till COVID stole it from me. We'd laugh till we cried, the 2 of us, and sometimes Dad made us 3. All our treasured moments that COVID can't take from me. So now we're social distancing and self-isolation is key. But we have a little secret, because COVID ain't stopping me. We got them through the basics of FaceTiming for free. So now we share the gossip through technology, not tea. Thank you. And I have one final poem for you. In the middle of lockdown, I had a special birthday. Unfortunately, not able to celebrate it, so I wrote this instead. It's called Turning 50. What happened to these numbers? They shot up overnight. I thought I'd just turned 49. This calendar's not right. But I'm going to stop complaining. It's just another year, another little milestone with nothing I need fear. Though my jeans are somewhat wider, I dream of being thin. My hair's a little dull and grey and growing on my chin. Sun-damaged spots on thinning skin and a bust that fights the sag. Creeping crow's feet now define grey eyes with extra bag. My arms sport flapping bingo wings. I've spectacles on lids and molars with metal fillings in and stretch marks from the kids. Then that clash with Mother Nature, the cunning of that witch, her exhausting power surges bringing mood swings like a bitch. My age is a growing number. My body's packing in. And so I'll just embrace it all with birthday cake and gin. Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful, Teresa. Thank you so much. And you see nothing to be nervous about.
I know, but it's just the thought of putting it out there, isn't it? But thank you.
Well, you have done now, and honestly, that was just absolutely gorgeous. And now we're going to another recent graduate, to Karen, and it's lovely to see you again as well. Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm going to read 2 short stories. The first is called On the Edge. The striking hooves of the plumed, evenly matched sable stallions as they trotted along Bushbury Lane caused even deaf John to look up from the clearing redundant crops on his allotment. He paused respectfully as we passed, half raising a salute as he noticed David, sombre and aloof in the following limousine. It was a mistake for David to respond. I could see his lips trembling, stung by a cascade of bitter and desolate tears. I averted my eyes and, like the seasoned undertakers distracting their young apprentice from the emotional grappling, I turned my attention to the route we travelled. I noticed the early spring sunshine highlighted the 1835 construction date of Bushbury Nursery, and in the same sweep, the church clock, long silent, its face faded into insignificance. The untidy jumble of boulders marking the enigmatic warrior's grave caused me to wonder if the mystery and the myth surrounding these ancient places would remain hidden forever, or whether I would soon be privy to their secrets. Who or how many are buried there, and why? And is there really a secret tunnel connecting the neighbouring Bushbury Hall farm and Moseley Hall? And who's the priestly figure I sometimes half glimpse as I walk the dog? I risk another glance at David. Composure regained. I can see he's retreated to his nuclear bunker. But I don't want him to be there. I want him here, present with me, feeling what I no longer can. Look, we're almost at the edge of the estate. Soon we'll be passing Top Field, where we used to bunk off from cross country and meet behind Northercote Farm. Do you remember carving a love heart pierced by an arrow? Dave and San, together, forever. At 14, what did we know about forever? Ask me now. Thank you. And my second piece is it's a flash fiction. It exposes flashes of love in a different way. And it's called Flashes. Shy, spotty, 19 and new. Easy fodder for swaggering, confident hospital porters who knew everything about everything and everyone. Easy fodder for junior doctors who thought they knew everything. I patently didn't. And easy fodder for Sister Eva Branitzka, who ruled the admission block at the hospital with a rod of steel welded to her spine. I never saw it, but I glimpsed the alloy tip reflected in her frost-bitten eyes, and its sharpened edges scaffolding her profile. And I heard it in the rasp of the rhotic R as she fired commands in my direction. Auxiliary nurse, test the urine. Auxiliary nurse, put away the laundry. Auxiliary nurse, fetch a trolley. I am Sister Branitzka, not Branica. My auxiliary nurse uniform was beige, matching Sister Branitzka's complexion better than her Max Factor cream puff palette. The perfect backdrop to show off my frequent blushes and distinctive nervous blotches. By comparison, her royal blue dress with detachable, freshly starched collar and freshly starched white sister's cap with a frilled trim oozed an unruffled professionalism that brokered no nonsense. Several years later, when I was promoted, I had wanted to find her and deliver a carefully crafted and rehearsed speech, standing proud and professional in my blue dress and pristine white sister's cap, my kindly blue eyes staring directly into her eyes. And I would say, Sister Branitzka, it has taken a long time for me to gain the courage and the confidence to tell you that for 2 years you made my life hell, you hard-faced and evil bitch, and I hated you for it. But each time I played the scene over, I had to stop there, because I would remember patients like Jack. He had a fungating carcinoma with a stench that rendered even the most hardened porter eye-wateringly speechless. A fragile and fearful man whose dignity had been eroded as efficiently as his metatarsals. Yet Sister Branitzka treated him with all the tenderness of a precious elderly relative as she fussed around bathing and dressing his ruined feet, dispatching me to the doctor's kitchen to see if there was perhaps a little soup. Then there was my first death, Urgent, raised voices, instructions I didn't understand and wasn't meant to, as the well-practiced routine clicked smoothly into place, sidelining me to observe with a horrid fascination the cardiac arrest protocol. The adrenaline-boosted high quickly dissipated as the crash team left with all their equipment and team talk, leaving me with a body that somehow filled the room, trapping me in the corner. It was Sister Brunitska who rescued me with sweet tea and a slight softening of her icy gaze, who taught me about compassion, dignity, and death as we washed and wrapped the body. I never did find her, and perhaps if I had, I would have remained silent as I once more glimpsed the steel in her eyes and in her sharp profile, and remembered that just once I had seen its serial number tattooed on her left breast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Gosh, so powerful and evocative. Wow, really amazing. Now we move on to another Level 5 student, Jessica Davis, with her work of flash fiction, Construction Graveyard.
Construction Graveyard. Do you remember that time you walked past me? Or maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was your mum, or your grandmother, or your great-grandmother. Apologies, it's the nose. A signature look for you all, it seems. Nevertheless, who it was is unimportant, as my point stays the same. You walked past me. You barely even glanced at my dirt-crusted windows or my metal-encased body. If you had, you would have noticed the shards of smashed glass that have peppered my front, the way each shard caught the light. My tears. Oh, how they shimmered. You would have seen the paint that peeled away from my body in agonising strips, ripped from top to bottom. You may even have seen the tiny door I purposely left open, practically begging for someone like you to walk in. For anyone to walk in. But you didn't. Nobody ever did. If anything, it had just left me open to the invasive touch of the destructive wind, the way it raced through me, ravaging, ripping at my walls, tearing me down. It would cast its eyes over my vulnerable frame, disturbing every inch of me, dust and all, before leaving. An echo of laughter as it winnowed away. But I had let the wind blow. Let it sing its songs of emotions, carry strips of your conversations on its breath, bringing memories of a time where my rooms were full of people, full of creation. It brought memories of a time where you had all visited every day, when every day at 9 o'clock sharp, my doors had flown open, welcoming each of you inside. A time when I had witnessed the creation of the weapons that were to save the country at the hands of the women who were to change the world. But the wind, it had mocked me, reminded me of that day my doors closed early and cheers exploded all around me. Reminded me of that day when each of you had come back inside, smiles plastered to your faces, conversations so quick, so happy, that they blended to make a tempo of a victory song. I remember you each gathering your things, and one by one walking out of my doors. Some of you had lingered. You had looked at every inch of me as though you were trying to remember every part before you left. You had looked at me like you were saying goodbye. Parties had filled the streets, but I was never invited. No flags had dressed my front, yet still I had waited. I had waited for your return, for the day that my doors would open and you would all come running inside. For years, I have waited. Even as the wind laughed, I have awaited your return, refusing to believe you had forgotten me. Had you? Or do you still remember? Sometimes I wish I had trapped the wind. I would have kept it with me so it could whisper its adventures in my awaiting ear. Keep it here so it could fill me with these memories of times when I wasn't alone. Times when I hadn't stood empty. But you know as much as I that the wind cannot be tamed. That if by some chance I had managed to capture its gusts, it would have left me nothing more than a pile of rubble on the floor. Do you remember that time when the cold of winter never broke into the warmth of spring? That time when I had finally decided to love the isolation, the stickiness of the cobwebs, the spiders that had become my friends. Do you remember? It was the first time in a long time that I had felt the eyes of someone bless my face, felt their interest pique at my unique appearance. I couldn't help but wonder what they had thought when they looked me over, admiring how each brick had once been lovingly placed. I wondered if they thought I had chosen this solitude for myself. I had wondered what they had planned for me, imagined the new stories I would hear, the new memories I would make. I had wondered how I would look after they had finished with me. Maybe a new coloured door, new windows perhaps. I remembered getting carried away, picturing each thing they may change, improve. I had wondered and wondered. Every time they returned bringing machines and materials, I wondered what I was to become. Do you remember when they had bordered my land with mesh fencing, a temporary case of armour that offered itself as protection against the unrelenting elements? How men of different heights and sizes had walked the path to my lonely doors. One had held a board with a white square attached. He seemed to be the one who was to decide my future. He ticked as he walked, expecting me from the floor to my rafters. When he left, I wondered what he had decided. Do you remember when he returned? When he had taken a step closer to my crumbling body, arms lifted as though he was about to embrace this decrepit stature, just as the word "clear" tumbled from his mouth. Do you remember? Do you remember when the shiny round ball came tumbling over the horizon, its sights set directly on me? Do you remember the sound as it connected with my side, scattering my very bones bare on the floor? Do you remember as I fell to my knees, as I looked at the sky one final time, a breath escaping my lungs? Do you remember? You were looking at me. You were all looking at me. A small crowd of faces that I remember seeing always walk by, always walk past. Do you remember? A construction graveyard, you called me. Such a shame, you said.
And now it's time to welcome another one of our first years, Toby Crabb. And this is his performance from the module Telling Tales. Over to you, Toby.
Let me tell you the tale of the Tavistock witch. It is said, in the old days of yore, in the western shire countries of old England, that there lived a witch. She lived in the rural village of Tavistock. Whenever she wanted money, she would assume the shape with a hex of a small fluffy rabbit or a bounding hare. She lived with her grandson, a sickly young boy, and when she wanted money, she would send him out into the town to find a certain huntsman, a gruff and elderly man who was always after the prize hunt. The grandson would tell the huntsman that he had seen a prize hare out in the woodlands of Tavistock, and each time he would be sent on his way with a roughing of the hare and 6 pence in his pocket. After he had done this many times, he would be sent, and the huntsmen would take to the woodlands with their rifles and their bows, their great drooling mastiffs following them, kicking up the undergrowth as they charged into the forest wilds. And so the hunt for the prize hare had begun. Alas, the hare was often seen, but never ever caught. One sporting huntsman, a younger individual, would often complain that they were giving up too easily, and an elderly man agreed with him. He would lower his rifle down and say that often you had to wait. The devil was in the dance, he must have said. And there'd be no end to that dance, and soon enough they suspected trickery. No hare had eluded them this long. It was a prize hunt, but they suspected that something was afoot. Eventually, they decided that a hare, a devil, a witch, a trickster, was no match for the power of the law, the church, and a well-aimed rifle. It was agreed that the next time the boy came to them, they should all be ready to take off with their mastiffs whenever they pleased. In an instant, in a flash, they would catch the devil off guard, and they would hang the hare above the fireplace in the local tavern. However, a neighbour of the witch who lived in the cottage just in the woodlands, she hated the old crone with a fiery passion, and she promised to let the hunters know that the old woman, the witch, the hare, she lived with her grandson, and that it was all a ruse. The witch took the form of the rabbit, one to lead the hunt, whilst her son would start it, telling the huntsman and keeping the coin. The next time it happened, the news came, and the hounds were unleashed, taking off barking and kicking up the undergrowth behind them. The huntsman set off with surprising speed, and soon enough, the old witch, now a bounding little hare, she didn't expect such a speedy chase from the hounds or the hunters. She was not prepared, and she began to panic. As the game was afoot and gunshots rang out in the forest, birds scattered from the trees, and the boy, the grandson, told himself that he had to save his grandmother, and he turned to the little hare looking up with big black eyes, and he'd say, "Granny, run, run for your life." And she did, bounding away. She ran, oh she ran, through the forests of Tavistock. At last, after wandering the woodlands for 9 hours, the hunters lost the hare, but they made sure that they had shot and drawn blood, so the mastiffs, with their sense of smell, could follow the paths. And eventually, the hare made it home, bloodied, bruised. She returned to her cottage and used a teeny tiny little door made of wood, big enough for a cunning hare to get through, but too small for a brutish hound or the hunters. But they would have their own method to get through. The huntsman and the party eventually approached this small little cottage in the woodlands, puffing smoke, small mushrooms, all different sorts of flora and fauna at the base. And surely enough, they found the door, and they brought a clergyman with them. A clergyman, a man of the church. They knew that there was some sort of magic, some irreligious hex on the hinges so they couldn't open it by mortal means. And once he was there and recited a prayer, he began to bash and crack the door inwards. And surely they found their way in to the witch's hut, following the grandson's trail as he fled the hunters after his grandma. The door was blown off its hinges, and they followed in. The hounds flew up the stairs with great speed as a drooling whirlwind of slobber, and they ran up, their rifles aimed for the kill. And there, in her room, they found the old hag begging for her life and for her grandsons. She was bleeding out and was covered with wounds and was gasping at her own throat, clutching, trying to grasp at her own breath. And when questioned, the old hag denied she was the hare. There were no witches in Tavistock, she said. Everything was well. The hunters and the prize hunter was unconvinced. "Call up the hounds," said the huntsman. "We'll have to see what I make of her. You never know. We might have another hunt afoot. Take her to the town." And they did. The old woman began to cry, and she would wipe away her tears with her floral dress. And the boy dropped to his knees and he was begging for mercy, and eventually mercy was granted on one condition. She was to be whipped, and she was to be flayed and punished for her crimes. The hunters had long practiced whipping the hounds, and so turning the cat o' nine tails to the hag was easily done. And so you could say that the woman had survived a far worse fate. She definitely did. Also, she had. Several months later, she would be put on trial for bewitching a young woman, the baker's daughter, making her spit pins and vomit small croaking frogs. The tale of the huntsman and the hare was given as evidence against her, as she was put in front of the church. And the old woman finished her days, as so many had, at the stake, skin crisping, blood gurgling. The smell was the worst part, it was horrible. But what about the huntsman, the prize hunter? He didn't have his hair, he didn't have his fur to hang above his fireplace or on his mantelpiece to secure his legacy as the greatest hunter. But he cared not. He watched from across town, and he watched as the gibbous moon rose over Tavistock once more. And casting his eyes out, he saw the smoke puff from the stake into the skies, and crows squawked overhead. And then he would cast his eyes back to the forest with a hunter's smile.
I've chosen to read a little work of flash fiction from my collection. It's Gone Dark Over Bill's Mothers, my debut short story collection. And I wrote this because I got married finally about 6 years ago now. 6 years ago. That's lockdown for you, isn't it? The years seem to feel really long. And everybody kept telling me to write something. You ought to write something. You know, you're a writer. Why don't you write something? And I don't really write about love. And I was kind of walking around the house one day thinking, what can I write about? What can I write about? And the thing about my husband is that he has this really bad habit of leaving guitar picks in his jeans. So that's all I hear going around in the washing machine, you know, and also socks. He leaves his socks everywhere. So this is called Pick Up Your Socks, from the bride to the groom. When I think about love, I am picking up your socks. This is not the only pair that I found. They are here on the stairs and there behind the chair. There's a pair stuffed in your boots. I trace a smell to a purple pair inside out, and there's a hole in the sole, so I throw those ones away. I find a sock in the washing that has no other, and it's this one I think about. It must have been part of a pair. You or I will have brought a pair of socks to wear as a pair. So where did it go? I emptied the sock drawer in case the odd sock was there, but there was no one sock, just pairs. 12 years of our socks, actually. Socks we wore here and took there. Black socks, striped socks, ankle socks and tights. Those are mine, at least I hope they are mine. I realise that we wear each other's socks now. We no longer care for which are yours and which are mine. We share everything else, and now even our socks. My left to your right, my right is your left. But we no longer need those sorts of directions. Socks are always one and the same, and yours are more comfortable anyway. Then a little voice asks for her socks, a blue one, she says, and an orange one, just like Daddy. And she's putting on a sock of yours over one of hers, though perhaps it's one of mine. No, it's one of ours, and it's definitely the one I thought we couldn't find. It's far too big for her, but we let her wear it, pulled right up above the knee. It makes us laugh. She laughs too. We're a 3-sock family, she says. And I realise that's what odd socks are for. When a pair becomes 3, none of this yours and mine, but our sock drawer. Okay, and that brings us then to the end of our showcase. We've gone from bones to brackets, open or closed, to runner beans, sunflowers, footnotes, dialogues with rats, to our love songs, to countries, to each other, and what we're all really making of this thing called lockdown, you know, because let's face it, the arts has got us through it all. It just remains really for me to thank you all, and with absolutely lots of love sincerely to you all, for agreeing to contribute and to really showcase the talent, the creativity and the diversity, just the approach, the interpretations. It just blows me away. So thank you very, very much to you all who've contributed today. I really hope you've enjoyed it as much as I really hope everybody goes on to enjoy the rest of the festival. Thank you very much.
Yes, so very good. Excellent work from everyone. I want to do a special thank you to our, I'm just going to pin myself so that I can be seen. I just want to do a thank you to our University Creative and Professional Writing Department to delivering this special showcase for the festival. And we hope that everyone's watched it has enjoyed the amazing work and writing that we've heard today. So thank you.